Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Double 18 Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. As promised tonight, I'm very honored to bring this special guest. I've actually never met this person, in person, I should say. But it seems like some of the past guests that I've had on this show, for those who've been following our show, I've interviewed a lot of people from Dallas-Fort Worth area. And the people that I've interviewed in the past from DFW are very connected to this special guest that I'm about to bring on tonight. Like I said, I've never met him in person, but, I've been, feel like I've known this person, not directly, but because of those connections. And I'm very, very happy that I'm able to bring this guest tonight. He is one of the rising stars in the DFW sports and entertainment media market, and is somebody that I'm very close to with, Jeff Skin Wade, who is one of his co-hosts on the Ben and Skin show down in Dallas-Fort Worth with 97.1 The Fan, The Eagle, which, by the way, it is actually a rock station, but it is a different show that you are normally used to listening to if you think of a rock station. But it is none other than Kevin KT Turner, who is the on-air personality on the Ben and Skin show on 97.1 The Eagle, an iHeart radio station. Kevin, I'm very honored to have you on tonight. And, we were just jokingly saying before we came on tonight that we've never met each other, but it feels like, we've known each other indirectly because of the people that you worked currently as well as in the past. And I am very, very honored to have you on tonight. Thank you for joining us tonight.
No, thanks for having me. And I think that's I think it's a testament to like one of the good things about social media. I don't know, if there's a ton of great things about social media, but that's one thing that is kind of tried and true. I've met so many people through just kind of knowing them on Twitter over the years. Sometimes they're out of town, like yourself. And that's always real fun when you get to, meet these people in person and find out more about them, and, yeah, that's the thing. It can't all be bad on Twitter. There's some good things about Twitter too.
Absolutely. One of the reasons why I know KT indirectly, because I listen to your show, the Ben and Skin show, 3 to 6 Central Time on 97.1 The Eagle, an iHeart radio station, which is, by the way, a legendary rock station down there. And so when I listen to your show, it's from 4 to 7 Eastern Time, where I am out here in Michigan. And so I'm listening to your guys' show pretty much since you guys left 105.3 The Fan, which is a flagship station of the Cowboys and the Rangers. And we'll get to the your time down there as well as we go along. From the time when the show started in its inception, which I think was March, February of 2020, just before COVID hit, right?
Yeah, I think when I went to iHeart to work at the Eagle, yeah, we were actually 2 to 5 Central, so 3 to 6 your time. And
that's right.
Yeah, it was February 2020, and there was I remember there being lots of like excitement in the building. There was a whole floor of like salespeople, like we went to the office every day, and then all of a sudden, it was just no one could go in. Now they gave me and Ben and Skin and Christina, who's also on our show, Christina Ray, they gave us these emergency FEMA badges, which were was like, it was you're a critical employee. I remember that term being thrown around. And I was like, I don't know, we're just doing radio. I don't know how critical it is, but it was awesome. And the show after us was there. So there was like a total of 7 or 8 people in the building at all times. It was really strange, but oddly, it was, despite a lot of weird stuff going on in the world, it was kind of fun for the first time ever to go to your show and not have anyone say anything about your show, in terms of like management or anything like that. I mean, they let us just do what we kind of wanted to do. And that was interesting to not have feedback or anything like that. And it's just a weird freedom, no one was going into the office. It was very strange, but it was also kind of, we go to work and we do our job and we go home. It's not that different than if there's a bunch of people in the building. So it didn't change too much for us on the air. You always had those fine lines of like, okay, how much do we talk about COVID? Because so at some point people aren't listening to you for that. But it's also like a news story, and you're just kind of trying to balance that a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm. I think it's kind of like before COVID and after COVID, we're kind of like in that timeline, where we are currently worldwide.
Yeah.
And from after COVID, your show went through some ups and downs, of course. And, you had to probably work from home, record from home from time to time as well. How do you feel about the current industry, before and after COVID, and how does it kind of impacted you about your viewpoints about, the where the media currently stands, whether it's just not just radio, but of course television, streaming services, and so forth?
I think we saw like first of all, very good question, because I think about this stuff a lot. And it's one of those things where you had this uncertain future, and what people tend to do, and by people I mean companies tend to do when there's an uncertain future, is they try to freeze things and find a way to save money as fast as possible. And I'm not speaking about iHeart. I'm speaking about almost every big business I can think of. COVID was a perfect opportunity for a lot of companies to cut back on things that they didn't deem to be worthy. And we can agree or disagree on whatever those things are, all day. But the point is, we saw companies try to figure out how they could save money in an uncertain advertising landscape. I also have like to broaden it out past like the media industry. I do think it's crazy that a 40-hour work week is seen as what is the necessary work week in America.
Exactly.
For every industry, it's way different for all industries. All this industries, the hours they spend at their job to have the productive work week is different. We just used the 40-hour work week because in the 1920s, that's what they used at the Ford motor plant. And that is true. We just still use that. And it's like, that was 100 years ago.
Exactly. Or the backlash from people who wanted to work from home, because obviously the value of office buildings, whether it's owned by the company themselves or even the property management company, was plummeting.
Yeah.
And, and a lot of the people were forced to go back into work. But sorry for interrupting there.
Well, no, you're spot on. Like, and there is something to, like the work from home thing is, I mean, for me, I enjoy going in, but I get that my job's a little bit different, but I think anyone who can do their work from home, to me, that also takes cars off the roads. It should make everyone's drive, hypothetically a little bit better, for as many people, or if there's like hybrid work schedules, like I'm in support of that as much as possible, whatever makes sense. If you got to go to the office to get the job done though, then yeah, that company should, I just think all these companies should operate the way that they feel is right. They are the people who own the company. But what we see is a lot of looking around, and we're going to do what they're doing. And that's how we still in 2025 use the same working hours and format that the Ford Motor Company used for a factory in the 1920s. It's crazy.
It is.
But like for me, I don't really have that 40-hour work week, come in at 8, leave at 5 type of job. So it's real easy for me to say that. And I understand that.
No. You bring up a very good point there. But, I interact with Skim primarily because, I've known him a little bit longer. I met him in person several times at a remote, of course, when you guys were working for, 105.3 The Fan in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very close with him. I still text with him every once in a while. I interact with you guys personally or indirectly whenever I see some interesting stories that I see online, and then just kind of retweet with you, Skin, and Ben Rogers, which is a longtime friend of Jeff Skin Wade, and how obviously both of them are still together with the Ben and Skin show. And then I feel really, really, happy that you guys kind of pick up some of the storylines, with or without my name being mentioned from time to time. And, I really, really, enjoy, listening to you guys just kind of get through maybe the last 3-4 hours of my workday, and obviously it's not an easy thing to do, but can you tell us, obviously we were talking about, you not having a regular 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 corporate type of job, but kind of give us an idea of what your day is normally like. I'm sure you have outside interest outside of what you do with Ben and Skin Show down there too.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's my role and job has changed a lot over the last 5 years. We were doing, back when we were the Eagle before, in 2020, like we talked about earlier, we were doing 20-minute segments. And then the station changed in 2022 to 97.1 The Freak. That was October of 2022, I believe. And, that was an all-day station. I moved to mornings and was doing 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And, it's just different, but we were doing longer segments. Now, when The Freak went away and the Eagle came back, and we were doing we're now doing shorter segments. We're now doing, for the first time really in our career, we're doing 6-minute segments, and it's different, but it's a rock station. Now it's not a talk station. So it's a rock station and the focus is the music. So, nowadays it's a little more surface level show prep than what might have used to be show prep. You have your story, but then you're trying to find out what's the first, second, third, fourth angle to have a deep conversation about, because we're going to talk about 20 minutes. The show prep is like more find the headline, tuck it away in the email and go. So I still wake up early. I try, and I don't look like it, but I try to make it to the gym most days. And then, then it's get the computer out, and I usually do a little bit of this the night before as well. And I kind of have gotten in the habit of laying out the show. It didn't used to be this way, but I've been with Ben and Skin for 12 years now, off and on. So now I kind of go, okay, we're going to do this here. We're going to do this here. We're going to do the sports thing at 4:14, and that'll go till 4:20, and then we'll come back. And I just kind of organize that. And those guys can obviously, Matumbo me back out to half court if they don't like what I've chosen for the day. Usually they don't care. Kind of like, Ben comes out, kind of has the first segment, Skin has the second segment, and 3:00 show. And at this point, we can get to the office at 1:30, and be fine. 2:00 be fine, because our segments again are shorter. So what's needed from us is we need more variety, I think, from us, branch out a little further than hitting just sports and entertainment. We used to, a little more variety from us, but like getting in those deep conversations is like harder to do right now because our clock's a little bit different. But that's just the station we work at, and it's like what it is, where you can evolve, or you can not be a part of it. I'm thankful to have a job.
You guys went to rock station 97.1 The Eagle, which is a very well-known legendary radio station down there. You were also working at 105.3 The Fan at the time. Can you kind of give us a detail on how both Ben and Skin decided to make that move from sports radio to a rock station? And then was it kind of difficult for you to, make a change from going from an all sports radio station to, say, a rock station? Or was it something that you were also looking to get out of because you didn't want to do sports all the time?
I know that at the time, at the Fan, I was, I started at 2013 and it was 2019 when this is all happening. And I didn't have a contract. I mean, I was making, $39K, just kind of getting through it as the third guy on the Ben and Skin show. So like I was already, I wouldn't say like unhappy, but I was looking for more, I guess is the way I would want to put it. But, what happened is Ben and Skin's contract was up, and, they were having the high level discussions with management about, renewing the contract or whatever. And they had demoted us too, the summer.
I believe it was from 3 to 7 local time to 10 to 2 or something like that.
Yeah. They moved us down to 10 to 2. And that felt like a kind of, okay,
felt
they
weird
kind of,
for somebody who was listening and
yeah,
living there at the time.
it felt a little bit like, I don't know. I mean, look, they were unhappy with us for whatever reason, and that's fine. It's we could talk about that. Like we weren't getting the ratings maybe they wanted us to get and things like that. And that's possible. I would contend that the ratings we did fine compared to how it's been since then as well, and they do well with ratings. And no matter what anyone wants to say, the Ben and Skin Show has always gotten decent ratings. So like it's a very contrived rating system, that's old school, not as old school as the Ford Motor plant, and their 40-hour work weeks, but it's like it's like we have this many people in the Metroplex and we're not measuring all these people, but that is another thing, So for me, Ben and Skin basically did not get their contract renewed, and that conversation window was open, but it got into the period where they could negotiate with other people. And very quickly, they were ready to step away. So they turned in their resignation. I think that Wednesday or something. I think Ben had vacation. So I think me and Skin stayed on the air. And so basically, I think, I don't know. In fact, I don't even remember the direct details, but they were taken off the air at some point. I think that Friday, and it was me, Skin, and Shippy that day. I remember, and so once people start finding out that you might be leaving, they take you off the air. So Skin left, and I was like, okay, well, I don't know what's going to happen here, and I didn't hear from Ben and Skin. They weren't going to they couldn't tell me. It's just like legally they couldn't tell me what was going on, So then went to the weekend, and then as we got to Monday, I set up a meeting with the boss, and I just kind of was like, hey, look, do I have a contract coming? Can we talk about my role here? And I just I think they wanted me. I think they wanted me to be the third guy on the KNC masterpiece, with Kevin and Corey. And I love Kevin and Corey. This is nothing as them, but I was just like, if I'm valued as the third guy here, I might as well just go see what Ben and Skin are doing. So the meeting, I was hoping that they would be like, okay, well, G-Bag Nation's doing 5 hours. Maybe they could do less, and you and Kavanaugh could do a show. Like I was thinking, like that. And I just didn't see a immediate step forward for me, so I turned in my 2 weeks, and the way that goes is they say goodbye. And in my contract, I didn't have a contract, but still with the salary that I earned, I still had to step away for 3 months. So I had 3 months off. And then, within a month, I was, iHeart had contacted me and, thrown out, I think, I got a bit of a pay raise, I'll say. Not world changing, but it was enough compared to the 6 years of making under 40K. But I will say this, through all that, it was great. And I had to go, it was pretty fun to say, okay, we're going to go to the Eagle. It's going to be different. Kind of do what we want type thing.
Yeah.
But it was weird because I had a lot of friends at the Fan, and I get along with management at the Fan. It was not a contentious thing or anything like that. It was just, sometimes when you've been at a place for a long time, it's time to go try something else. And had fun at the Eagle, and have had fun at the Eagle. And then the Freak was a dream. It was a dream come true, and it was just it was only an 18-month dream apparently, but it was awesome, and I wouldn't trade anything for anything because it was great, and I'm still at it. That's the other thing. I have a cool job, and I never want to seem ungrateful or anything. It's I just think people. I also think people should be paid what they're worth in many places. Not even talking about myself, talking about everywhere in this industry and all industries, and you just. Sometimes radio is not the place to go for money sometimes. So, yeah.
My guest tonight is Kevin KT Turner from 97.1 The Eagle, formerly with 105.3 The Fan, as we were discussing his previous stops there. He's also written for The Athletic as well before. When you were working at 97.1 The Eagle, during the early days of COVID, and now when it switched over to 97.1 The Freak, which unfortunately lasted about 16 months before switching back to the old, well, not the old, but the current format, which was always, the rock station as it is. Kind of take us through that moment in time where it went to Eagle to Freak, and the kind of like the backstory on why it kind of decided to do the brand change, and what was the role, maybe not you, of course, but perhaps Ben and Skin and the others that was perhaps involved in it, particularly the old Grey Wolf, known as Mike Reiner, who is a legendary a Dallas radio personality, mostly with the Ticket and, of course, a host of other stations before he came on board with the Freak.
Well, the Eagle, I think before we get to that, I just say, like, the Eagle was what it was because the Russ Martin show for many years, which, when I was doing radio, the Fan, all those years, I didn't get a chance to listen to the Russ Martin show, but like, I remember in college, coming home from a bar one night and like they would play reruns of Afternoon Drive of the Russ Martin show. They play reruns overnight. So I remember like 3 a.m. hearing the Russ Martin show and thinking that was real weird, but that's where, that show was huge, and Russ had some health issues. And then, he passed away. I want to say 2021. Might have been early 2022. I'm really not sure, but there was, a time in that window where Russ, passed away, and that was huge. I mean, that's an iconic, legendary, figure and DFW media, whether you like him or not, that is a huge name, and that he was key to the Eagle being what it was. The person in charge at the Eagle at the time, she had a vision that, and this is because of her success selling the Ben and Skin show and the Russ Martin show combined. She had a vision that it's easier right now and better for the client to sell ad space during a talk format rather than a music format. Because, and quite frankly, because you can go listen to music wherever you want, and it's kind of that. And so, she was like, started kind of dreaming this up a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, who are some names that we could get? And, so, I don't know how much, I was not, trust me, I'm not involved in any high level meetings with iHeart ever. I'm pretty sure iHeart doesn't even know I exist. Oh yeah, there we go. We got an article about it.
Right.
There was a lot of stuff though, I know, that was said, some stuff gets said to you indirectly on social media, or sometimes there is, stories that get out like that, and you kind of know, I didn't do anything besides go, okay, well, what about this guy? Well, this guy, okay. Well, this guy might not have a contract. Like, it was just like things like that. No one was like contacted. And, Reiner came in to fill in. Skin had throat cancer, and Reiner came in and,
that's right,
and did the show with us 2 or 3 times. And he kind of enjoyed he had been retired for a couple of years. I think he kind of enjoyed coming up and hanging out. So then it was just kind of about, finding out who else is available and who else would be willing to try something. But man, I was not involved in any of those conversations. That's all, the iHeart people involved, kind of knew what they were doing. So, Reiner was retired, so he was easy right off the bat to holler at and things like that. I know, Julie didn't have a contract at the Ticket.
Billy Dobbs, that is, of course, yes.
Yeah, and Kavanaugh, me and Kavanaugh are old drinking buddies. So, Kavanaugh, I see him all the time. So I kind of knew that it was there was a time, like, I knew that he was unhappy. I didn't know what he was up to, but I knew he was unhappy at the Fan because he was doing a 5-hour show every day. I think that was starting to wear on him a little bit. And, so, just it's one of those things where we had this lineup and we had this crew. And I think if we had more time, I think it would have played out, but the lady who dreamed all of this together was let go by iHeart 8 days before the Freak launched. So that's important to know. Like, we were doomed from the start. Like, they got rid of the person who created it 8 days before the Freak even launched.
Man, that's just the downturn of the industry, which Obviously, unfortunately, there is a lot of turnovers that go through, especially in TV and radio. Um, was it easier for you to kind of get back from the Freak to the Eagle, because you guys had already worked in the Eagle from a personal standpoint, from a format perspective?
Yeah, from a format perspective, I was comfortable, and I'm pretty comfortable with anything, honestly. I mean, I wouldn't want to do like I wouldn't want to do like conservative news talk or anything, but like from a format perspective, I'm pretty confident that I can, if we're talking of a base of like local news stories,
Yeah.
sports and entertainment, I feel pretty good about being able to contribute in a certain role. Personally, wasn't surprised when it happened, but I was devastated because the show I was doing at the time, I was getting to host. Like, like being on the Ben and Skin show has been uh, the most amazing thing for me. But there's a thing that goes with being on the Ben and Skin show, and that is that it's the Ben and Skin show. And I'm not gonna lie and tell you I don't have any ego. Like you want your own thing at some point too.
Right. You were doing a morning show, was it?
Yeah, I was doing mornings, and I told Ben and Skin when I was hired to work with them in 2013 back at the Fan. I left the ticket to go to the Fan in 2013, and I was like, my dream is that one day I'm hosting the show before you guys or after you guys, because you can hang around and mix into the next guy's show, and you can promote each other's show and things like that. So for me, that's what I really wanted to do, and I was doing that. To be in the morning, and the Ben and Skin show would come in after. I mean, it was amazing, and I loved it. The show I was doing at the time, and I did a show with Jeff Kavanaugh and Julie Dobbs, and then they did a lineup change a few months into the Freak, and I was doing a show with Danny Bayless and Mike Soroy, who were longtime guys at the ticket, and I just kind of thought our show was starting to really take off. I thought our creativity was starting to really mesh and go places, and we just didn't get enough time to see it through, and that is just how the business is. It makes more sense for iHeart too. I mean, why pay 10 people to do talk shows when I could have a DJ just play this, or have a syndicated morning show like we do now? I mean, they are saving money on the deal, so I get it. I'm not mad at anybody.
Mm-hmm. In your line of work that you've also done in the past, with YouTube, as well as the writing and all of that that you have done in the past, what is it that yet you're still with the radio, working in radio? What is it about radio, working in radio, in spite of all the the ups and downs that you have experienced, that remains attractive to you?
I've just always wanted to do it. I remember being 6 years old and just always wanted to do radio. I mean, whether it was doing play-by-play while playing video games. I had a couple of cousins who were older than me, but who lived, right across the way from me growing up. And we did fake radio shows and call-in radio shows and all that type of stuff. So like, I just always wanted to do it. I mean, I started in a small town. I started doing radio when I was 13. Like, I've always wanted to do it. And it's just like, it's it. Like, that's all I want to do. And yeah, of course, like you think about things and want to get better at it and all that stuff. And I absolutely do. But for me, it's just always been that. And these other things I've done, and messing around on TV and writing and all that other stuff is great, but nothing's got that pure joy that I feel when a segment just works out, or a bit just happens, or someone is set up and they just nail a joke, right on time, and you make the whole room laugh. It's what I assume is what stand-up comedians feel when they go out and kill. I think it's that, and also I'm organized. I like a little bit of OCD that, I mean, a lot of people do, but I do enjoy the daily prep of it. I do enjoy having the menu of things that could be on the show, and kind of, this should go here, this should go here, we should not do that today, but maybe we can do that tomorrow. Like, I enjoy that aspect of it a lot. And that's like the part that I think a lot of people are turned off by it too, is that they see that as work. And I enjoy the hunting and pecking around the internet and finding crap and slicing it in there, because ultimately I'm just looking for ways to make Ben and Skin and Christina laugh. So what's a story that's also covering our bases by doing the job of, you're servicing DFW residents listening, and we do some of the sports things that we do. Like outside of doing that, it's like really just looking for things that are kickers to make everyone else laugh. And I never get tired of that. That's fun.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, speaking of sports, let's talk about the teams in the DFW area. Obviously, the top story now seems to be with the Cowboys, with the training camp near. But let's start with the Dallas Mavericks. That was quite a season that you guys had down there, trading away Luka, and then a long shot to win the top overall selection in the NBA draft back in May with the lottery, and then drafted Cooper Flagg last month. And then the common denominator in all of this is Nico Harrison, the GM, who has obviously been widely ridiculed by the fans and is not well received by anybody, even with the drafting of Cooper Flagg last month. Obviously hasn't earned back any goodwill from the fans who are still mad about Luka Doncic trade. Where are you right now when it comes to the Mavs? How you feel about the Mavs after Cooper Flagg, drafting? Are you feeling good about the Mavs, or do you still feel the little bit of angst, like many, about the Luka Doncic trade, how it happened, and how little you guys got in return?
I feel like we got the ultimate get out of jail free card by winning the lottery. I mean, that's what that was. I mean, it is and to this day, it is a very dumb trade, a trade that doesn't happen, anywhere else probably. A trade that, had ego involved in it, that doesn't go away. But like when you get the gift of winning the 1.8% chance and you get a guy like Cooper Flagg and you're still angry, I think that's just wasting time that you could be excited and in a good mood. And I think you can choose how you feel about some things. I don't think it's so out of control that you can't let it go. And I understand that Luka meant so much to so many people. I loved him too, but man, when you get a gift like that, it just turned things so much. I also, though, I have to understand, realize that I'm also getting older. I'm 37, but I watched the 1990s Dallas Mavericks growing up. My first, iteration of those teams. And those were teams who were not winning very many games. Man, I'm in such a mood. I'm going to go pull it up right now, because those 90s Dallas Maverick teams were horrible. And
yes, they were. Yeah.
I love the crap out of those teams, because where I grew up too, out in the middle of nowhere, we didn't get every game. It was actually kind of rare to always get to get a Mavs game. So I'm legitimately pulling up the franchise index. I'm going to read these out to you, because I think this is important to say right now. 1990, I'll say I was born in 88. So let's start in 1992. I was 5. They 11 wins, 93, 13 wins, 36, 94, 26 wins, 24 wins, 20 wins, 19 wins. That's what I grew up with. And I haven't seen anything, I mean, we've had a couple bad years in the last, decade, where a couple under 35 win seasons. But if you made it through watching the 90s Mavs, then you can handle a team that has Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis on it. So I get what people are upset, and I understand, and I do think everyone is allowed to feel the way they want to feel. But also, I do question how hardcore of a Mavs fan you actually were, and if you remember what it was like to watch them in the 90s, when they're in such a better place than they've like you couldn't even imagine that in the 90s that they would be this good. So when you get that gift and you get the Cooper Flag thing, and if you don't get Cooper Flag, it is looking bad without Kyrie next year. I think we all know that. Right. And I can't tell you that I would be this cheery about it. I don't think people just need to get over it. I also think people do need to look at this way more than just going, screw Nico Harrison, because I think that's, it's a bad trade.
Yeah.
But let's just all agree on that and move on. But you can't tell people to move on because they get mad. So I'll just sit here.
Right. It certainly didn't help that Harrison himself added, fuel to the fire by saying it's part of the process and whatnot, which obviously it's understandable that does not sit well with the people for what he did there. You write for the Cowboys, about, blogging the Cowboys, which can be found on, I believe, on most podcast stations, correct?
Yes, it's the One Star Cowboys podcast. These
One
days.
Star, I apologize. Yeah. One Star.
No, we changed our name a couple times, so
right,
it's on us.
And right, you're right about the Cowboys, but you're also a Green Bay Packers fan, which kind of, I'm in a crosshair because I am a longtime Chicago Bears fan, and you guys obviously have, been on the, have always beaten the Bears quite convincingly. How did you become a Packers fan living in the in the heart of Dallas?
So it's really all I ever knew. But I believe, as the story goes, my dad, who was born in 1960, he and his brother's a year older than him. So his brother liked the Cowboys, and he just liked the other team. And back then, there was a lot of Cowboys, and there was a lot of Packers games on, back in the the late 60s. So my dad was a Packers fan his whole life, and stuck with them. And I grew up just being a Packers fan. Like, it was never even offered to me to be a Cowboys fan. It was those things. And that was tough growing up as a kid because the Cowboys were dominating the Packers. I mean, Brett Favre could not get over the Cowboys hump. So even though it's looked good for the Packers, in the last 15 years or so, playing the Cowboys, like, it was not always like that. I got picked on a little bit at school, and things like that.
Yeah.
But stick with the team. I believe that. I believe you stick with the team too,
Well, that's true. That's true. Obviously both the Packers and the Cowboys have had some historic rivalries. The Ice Bowl, of course, in the late 60s to determine the very first Super Bowl, team from the NFC. You get your teams obviously had a phenomenal battles in the mid 90s in the playoffs when the Cowboys were on the ups, of course. And I want to talk about obviously being a Packers fan your whole life. Favre, Aaron Rodgers, your team has had a real good, quarterback succession, even long after Brett Favre was done with the Packers, and then Aaron Rodgers was sitting, waiting for his time there and everything. If you had to pick one quarterback, Favre or Rodgers, who is it for you?
It would be Rodgers for me, and that is just. It's unbelievable that it ended up being that way because after seeing Favre, but I think there's a level of time if you carve out a 3-year window, and I do think there's a period where you go, that was the greatest quarterback that's ever played in those 3 years, and that's probably 2010, 11, and 12, or 11, 12, and 13, because I watched the documentary on him too that he did, on Netflix, and it showed a lot of highlights. And I was sitting there going, man, these wide receivers weren't really open. Like, it was a lot of tight throws, and he's, putting it around the money. And so to me, it's Rodgers. I am prepared for, the back half of my life to not have any good quarterback play because I grew up going from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. And we'll see what happens with Jordan Love, right? But it's been pretty remarkable that I got to go. I'm a very lucky sports fan because not everyone has had that, and I know you can attest to that as a Bears fan. Like,
that's true. That's true.
Now, though,
absolutely. Well, even when the Bears were down, at least I had the pleasure of enjoying the Blackhawks winning 3 Stanley Cups and then the Cubs winning it in 2016. I was up late that day, and then I was in tears when the Cubs, finally won as well. But let's move on to the Cowboys, which obviously you do the podcast, which can be seen scrolling at the very bottom there. You could Google it, check it out, and subscribe to the his podcast on the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are going through some changes. Obviously, this year, they have a brand new coach, Brian Schottenheimer, which I think a lot of people were kind of like scratching their head about the whole hiring process and etc. Should the Cowboys fans feel very optimistic about Brian Schottenheimer compared to when he was hired to where things are right now? And if so, why?
I think if you were the Cowboys fan who was just kind of done with what's happened the last 4 years, that involved 3 playoff appearances. But if you're just kind of done with it and bored with the McCarthy ride, absolutely you should be. But no, it's not an inspiring hire at all. And I'm in that weird place where I've been trying to tell myself, and I know it's like, in radio, everyone wants you to have a good hard opinion and have a good hot take. It's real hard for me to judge a guy who is just now going to get to be a head coach for the first time. I have to think that he saved stuff for himself, over the years. Now, I was a OC in Seattle in some of those good Russell Wilson seasons, but there's a lot of talk about who should get credit for designing that, and was Pete Carroll involved and all that. So it's really kind of hard to tell. I understand why the world's kind of rolling their eyes when they hired Brian Schottenheimer, because he was in-house and all that stuff. But to me, they had to get out from under the McCarthy thing. I as a lifelong Packers fan, I've seen every game Mike McCarthy has ever coached, and it just kind of it runs out of gas pretty quick, and you start seeing the same things very often. And I see this, I can compare it very easily as a Packers fan seeing LaFleur, and you're about to enjoy this with Ben Johnson in Chicago. Right. These guys are not recycling the same stuff very often. They are legit. We got new stuff every week and a big package of new stuff every week. And it's refreshing to see that. Mm-hmm. Not it was all matchup based with McCarthy back in, and I just don't, I think it was time to move on from that. Schottenheimer, to me, will not get any judgment from me until I see how he, gets half a season of, game flow, calling plays, what's the scheme, and then how do you manage a clock and game management, all that stuff. And he hasn't really had a chance to do all that. He's had a chance to call plays, but he hasn't had a chance to do all this combined at once. So I'm withholding judgment. I would hammer the over on 7.5 wins for the Cowboys this year. I think the George Pickens trade changes everything. Dak Prescott did not go from being second in MVP voting to being trash just because he got hurt. He's still a good quarterback. He may not be the guy to take you there, but I also think Cowboys fans need to lower their bar. It's been 30 years. Your bar can come down. Making the playoffs is a good thing. And I realize you don't get anywhere, but man, there's a lot of teams who would kill to be in the playoffs. So making the playoffs is a good thing. Winning 12 games is a good thing. And too often, I think the media around here acts like it's not. And it is. And I realize that. But I think there's a lot of people who oh, cool, you won 12 games. And I'm like, well, okay, it's not 1994. It's just not. And, we'll know when they had a real chance to go upset everyone. We'll see it. And we've had it happen a couple times where you go, that was the team. That was the year. And sometimes Des might have caught it and might not have caught it. That's the stuff that I think we can really hone in on. But, this thing that year in and year out, the Cowboys have to be contenders. Otherwise we're unhappy. I don't know that I agree with that.
And as a Bears fan, I would take 12 wins, 13 win seasons in a heartbeat just to kind of experience that. At least we're there. But then, when you keep running into, losing in the, the divisional series all the time, and there's no trajectory. Now that's when you can, pull the plug like your team did with the Mike McCarthy era, for sure. Right. So baseball wise, next week is the All-Star game. And then a week from tonight is the home run derby and everything. And I was talking with my co-host Ken Fang from Awful Announcing about the state of the All-Star game and everything. Do you still follow? Do you still get interest in watching the All-Star game, or does having to represent every team from even the shittiest teams like the Rockies and the White Sox, does that kind of kill the the mood of not having the deserving players who don't get to play? And also does interleague play, which is almost 30 years old by the way, does that kind of kill the All-Star game mood for you?
Fun fact, I was at the very first interleague game, Rangers Giants, 1997. Giants, I think, won 4-3, something like that. Hank Aaron and Nolan Ryan throughout the first pitch. Beautiful.
Wow, okay.
Beautiful night. But I was and I'm one, like, I watch the Rangers pretty much every day. I've got them on every day at least. I love that baseball still serves as background noise of the summer, and it's always kind of on. You can lock in as much as you want. I lock in more than I probably should with this team right now and their bad offense. I find baseball to have become way more watchable over the last 2 years, though, than it had been before. I know there are people who disagree with speeding up the game. I love speeding up the game. I think it's made it easier for lower attention spans and things like that, and people to get into the game. And I think it's been more exciting. But the thing that I would say about the All-Star game is, as a kid with so many bad Ranger teams, it was always great to get the one guy into the game. So I am a big fan of those. Let's say if you're a kid out there, you're 13 years old and you're following the Colorado Rockies, you should get your All-Star into the game. I do agree with that. As far as the game, this is how I feel about all All-Star games right now. I actually think I liked it better when it mattered. When you did get home field, like, say what you want about it. And I understand it's not the right way that home field should be determined, but there was something on the line. And I know the NBA All-Star game has tried some things like this team will get this charity, or this team will get this much prize money and all this stuff. And I understand that, but prize money, I don't know, that it's me going as much as it does. But like, I like that there's something involved in it. And, since the All-Star game switched back to not having that game mean something, I understand why people disagree with it, but I've kind of been like, okay, it's on, I've got it on, but I'm not like locked into it like I might have used to been.
Oh, I certainly agree. That the All-Star game has kind of lost its luster to a point where people are even talking about getting rid of it. Especially on the NBA side, because of the lopsided scores, players just not interested or, caring about it one way or the other. So, we'll see what happens next week, when we watch the game. A couple more segments with Kevin KT Turner, the guest tonight on from 97.1 The Eagle, a rock station down in Dallas, an iHeart radio station. I had this conversation again with my co-host Ken Fang last night about the current state of sports media, as well as the consumer, being a consumer, as well as somebody who works on the other side of the spectrum yourself. You used to work for, or at least has written for The Athletic, correct?
Yeah, I used to. And that was podcasting for them as well. They kind of cut back on that when they sold to the New York Times. They cut back pretty big time. So I got the guys on my podcast, the One Star Cowboys podcast, Kent Garrison, John Machota, Saad Yusuf are all athletic dudes. So yeah.
How long did you work for The Athletic there?
I would say I was probably, if you combine my writing and podcasting, I would say probably like 5 years, maybe 6. Part-time, paid like a freelancer type thing.
Yeah.
What happened is, and now this is 8 or 9 years ago, one of my really good friends from college, his name is Or Moyal. He works over at Front Office Sports, and he's worked at The Athletic. He's worked at Fox.
Oh, Front Office Sports. Okay.
He's great.
Yes.
He and a writer for The Athletic now, Levi Weaver, who had been with the Rangers, and Levi Weaver is one of the most talented writers I've ever seen in my life. Okay. He was a Rangers beat writer at the time. they were like, well, let's do a startup. And it was called The Upset. So they were going to do, a website and put a bunch of content on there. And they hired me and Jeff Kavanaugh, who we talked about a little bit earlier, to do Dallas Cowboys content, draft content, NFL draft stuff and things like that. And they also hired or also had Bob Sturm as well. Bob Sturm, who is on PM Drive over at Sports Radio 1310 The Ticket.
Right.
And so the five of us started doing it, and very quickly The Athletic was kind of just launching. And I think they had got going, and maybe they had LA going and New York and Chicago going or whatever. They saw what we were doing, and they came in and bought us basically. So I had I had not like limited stake. So it's not like I, cashed in or anything. We're talking a very little amount of money, but because of that alliance we had formed, The Athletic bought us all up. So I went and worked for The Athletic. So it's not like The Athletic hired me really. They just kind of hired, Dallas is what they were looking for. And they really wanted Bob and, some of these other names, but it was great. It was a wonderful experience to get to write and do all that stuff. I like doing it. I never feel good about it. That's a good thing I like about radio. You do radio and it's over. The podcast might last a lifetime.
Sure.
If people want to go back and find something you've said, Lord knows they can do that. But writing is a little bit of torture for me because you end up editing yourself and just, is that good enough? And it's better. Radio's kind of like that.
Exactly.
I like doing TV, but 1, 2, 3, 4 takes of it, I don't know. It's kind of just like, this is what happened. It's what happened in the moment, and then we'll go forward from there. So,
yeah, I completely understand about the writing. I do my writing for fansided.com right now, and I get it, stuff edited, having to rewrite from time to time. Not often, but when I look back and I read my article and I realize I made some grammatical errors, which I kind of feel a little bit, embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's
my friend's like the editor. It's like, oh, that poor guy is having to edit I feel like I owe him now.
I know.
And he's like, no, it's my job. It's my job to do this. And maybe we'll put this line here. And I'm like, oh, thanks for you. And he makes you look like a better writer. Like I always appreciated having that. But I know not everyone's lucky enough to have their own editor. They gotta do it themselves. And
exactly.
Writing can be torturous, but it's fun when it's flowing good and you feel like
it is
smart.
Absolutely. Even of course I don't do this for money. And you were a contractor. I'm a contractor with Fansided as well. Probably like in the same ordeal. You get a few. How many dollars for how many clicks, etc., etc. Was that with The Athletic as well?
Yeah, I think they were giving me even. I think it was probably like $50 an article, and get me to do one article a week. I think it was something like that.
Oh,
which,
okay.
Hey, little side hustle and. These are all thoughts in my mind anyways, So yeah, it was good, and we, it was just like, first of all, to say that you worked for The Athletic for a minute was cool, it's
absolutely
great thing to have, but it really allowed me to do the podcast, the Cowboys podcast, which was fun to do, just different to lock in on one thing and discuss it. And to have, John Machota and Saad Youssef and Kent Garrison are three of my really good friends in this world. And we've been doing this podcast for 7 or 8 years now, and started at The Athletic. The Athletic was paying me to do it, but that's not the case anymore, but it's fine. We got to do it for ourselves. And, it's fun to do. And it keeps me, making sure that I'm keeping up with the Cowboys as much as I'm supposed to, because, don't want to look like an idiot. Those guys are in the locker room every day. I'm not anymore. I used to be, but I'm not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the one perks that you lost when you were working for The Athletic. Unfortunately,
yeah. Yes. When I left the Fan, that kind of all went away to get credentials.
Oh, that's right. You were with the Fan too, the flagship station.
I'll tell you, one of my least favorite places to be was the sports locker room. I always felt like we were invading their privacy. I never felt real comfortable about that. They just got done with football practice. We could give them 30 minutes before we, start grilling them about whatever. So I never really liked going to the locker room, but I really appreciate and respect the people that do. I mean,
Absolutely.
Ground floor reporting and
Sure.
journalism these days may be more important than ever. And it worries me where things are going with AI and all that stuff. Like I'm like, oh no.
That's true. That's true. How do you feel about the usage of AI being more prevalent, more frequently used, and obviously the authenticity of the reporting and writing seems to get lost, with the usage of AI. How do you feel about that?
I just don't trust that there's I mean, I know there's a big part of it that is you get left behind if you don't start, using it a little bit. So,
Sure.
but I just don't trust that there's enough. I don't trust the percentage of people that are going to use it for good. That's the problem. I think the number of people, which was still in the minority, but I think the number of people who are going to use it as a tool for just diluting content or misinformation, I think that percentage of people is higher than I think we think, and I think that's my problem. Not so much in sports media or whatever, but like just the little things, that they could take something and just
Right.
fool people, and that's bad. And I think we all know it's bad. And I think there's a lot of people who don't want anything to do with AI because of this, but hey, it's where the world's going, and it can do some cool, fun stuff. But I also understand that there's really nothing that can be done at this point. I do think we are too far gone with technology. So, there's no good answer I have.
No, I agree. I totally agree. It's the people who, that come up with it. The founders of ChatGPT or Chat AI or whatever the hell they're coming up with it these days nowadays. The intent of it, I think, certainly needs to be studied, and needs to be there needs to be somebody who overwatches them from
Can I just share something with you? I don't know if
absolutely go ahead.
Will my share screen work, or does I don't know if it will or not. If it doesn't, it's fine. Let me show this. This is just I have a whole this is my document that I do for the show. These are my notes that I show. Maybe it's not gonna let me show it.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I did see something that popped up.
Okay.
To your next screen. Yeah. So give it a try
Okay.
one more time.
I'll put it up there. Yeah. As this is just a story that I've pulled aside for tomorrow. This is my, this page is just my notes. And that'll be in the show tomorrow. The pet lion attacks people in Pakistan. But I took this copy out of a story I saw. 97% of students are using AI to do their work. A new survey reveals that almost all Gen Z students are using AI to do their work.
I read something like that. Yeah.
This is a survey of over 12,000 high school and college students. Okay, so 12,000 is not some small sample size. That's big enough. 97% said they've used AI. 1 in 5 admitted they've used AI to write college or scholarship essays before getting to campus. 31% said they've used AI to write essays. 35% say they use it for homework. 66 say they use it to study. 56% use it at test prep. 46% for note taking. The point is, like, it's going to make everyone lazier. And we're already lazy because of technology, and it's going to increase that. And I don't think that's good. But it's the world we live in, man. This is
yeah.
Get on the horse and ride it, or get left behind, I guess.
Unfortunately, yeah. Because the CEOs just need to keep making money to appease to the hedge funds or the stock owners, shareholders, I should say. What? So
what are you going to do without that fifth car?
Exactly, or a yacht for that matter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You definitely have to take it. Yeah. Private jet. Got to get water transportation. You got to have that.
That's absolutely. Is there anybody in particular like you follow that in the industry, whether locally or nationally, that you kind of look up to when you were in the industry, or do you still like have some sort of a person that you talk from time to time?
Yeah, I mean, like when I grew up and I grew up listening to the Ticket. So, to me, what made the Ticket great was just the perfect mix of sports and non-sports stuff, and you could mesh it in and make it funny. And those guys all had great chemistry and all that stuff. Um, I mean, Gordon Keith was star, is a star, and seeing what he did and see him go to his own TV show and things like that always like was pretty inspiring to me. And I got to know, Gordon a little bit. I don't know if anyone truly gets to know Gordon, but I got to know him a little bit. So yeah, he was definitely one of them that was like, oh, okay. I listened to Ben and Skin before I worked with them, so I mean, I knew them and listened to them. I remember the day they were on the air at live 105.3 The Fan in 2008, and then it shifted to college sports music for college marching band music playing because they had a format flipped to sports. I remember listening that day and going, what's happening? Like that was early on and before I was getting an internship and getting into the business. So like people like that, for sure. Bob and Dan over at the Ticket were always great for me. They're the ones who, they started asking me to do stuff with them at the Ticket when, part-timers to get in and start getting to do stuff with the full-time shows doesn't happen very often. So when they started asking me to, hey, make a game show for us or do a bit for us. And then, they're the ones who kind of told me, hey, Ben and Skin are out at ESPN. They're probably going to the Fan. I sent them, your email and, I mean, they're like, hey, we're not trying to get rid of you, but you may have a better opportunity. So I'll always be, thankful for those guys. And I got honestly like people I look up to, like I have friends who I went to college with and who are just doing cool stuff. And I've gotten to work with them, but I've always like really appreciated that. Like Roy White, who you had on your show recently, he helped me get an internship at the Ticket. He helped me, he's the guy I did my first sportscast with. So Mike Marshall, we could call him the machine, but Mike Marshall has worked everywhere, but he was the digital VP of content for the Mavericks. He just left there to go do to get a job at D Magazine. But over the last year, I did a show on the Mavs YouTube channel called Roundball Talk with him. And I just always like in awe of all the the amount of crap that he can do that I can't do. There's so much stuff he can do that I can't do. I mentioned my buddy Orr, who works at front office sports now. And he is just, this guy is up in like high, big level meetings, but he used to produce for Dale Hansen back on Channel 8. But these are guys who I literally met in college taking all these, broadcasting classes. So like there's a part of it's like just trying to keep up with those guys a little bit too. That's always been a part of my game. Christina, one of my friends from college, I get to work with her every day. Her boyfriend, Mike Soroy, who I worked with, like he gave me opportunities when I was part-time at the Ticket. Like he was working on a TV show and he's like, hey man, I can't make it today, but here's my camera equipment. If you want to go shoot Cowboys practice, and help me in and I'll feed you some money, like stuff like that. When you're not in the game completely and you're part-time and you get offered and you have to go say yes to these things. But like, Mike Soroy was the guy who looked out for me a little bit. His brother Cash, like these are all guys. Danny Bayless, who again I mentioned earlier at the Ticket. I mean, that guy was anything I needed. I remember he and I got written up one time at the Ticket as a part-time employee, written up because in one of my sports updates, we called them tickers. I left out details of Tyron Smith got his contract restructured, which I view a contract restructuring as boring content that the mass amount of the audience doesn't really care about. But maybe our program director did care a lot about the restructuring of a contract. I was like, okay, yeah, but I remember we got written up and he called me and told me not to worry about it, that it's going to be fine, not a big deal. So that's like, it's kind of that more so than like looking up to all these other people. I've always had all these guys though, who I always tried to emulate a little bit, like a part of my, I don't know, whatever I do is that Joel McHale and all this stuff. It's just guys I just think are really funny and have always loved, and that's always like in there, and you try not to completely, copy that guy. But yeah.
Absolutely. I'm going to end on this note here. This was something that me and Ken had discussion yesterday. I'm going to play a clip of Jun Lee, who used to work for CNN, actually ESPN. He was on CNN recently talking about the sports fandom becoming a little more expensive. And I want to ask you, as somebody who works in media and as well as somebody who consumes. Here we go.
June, I'm worried not only about the financial cost, but also the societal cost. Something you wrote, I'm going to read aloud. The result isn't just inconvenient, it's lonely. It's access shatters, rituals vanish, as do the moments that make sports communal. A bar full of strangers cheering for the same team, the generational ties passed down through the seasons. Those experiences fade under a system that dictates that the more you can pay, the more you can see until the game disappears behind another paywall. Expand on that.
We're living in a time where there's so few things that people can actually talk about at the water cooler with a stranger on the subway. And sports is one of those last things that people can actually come around because it's something that happens in the real world. It's a current event. And it's not one of those things like a television show where those all used to be on the same broadcast network. And now everyone almost seems to be watching a different TV show. I don't know how many conversations I've had with a friend. Well, they'll bring up a TV show that I've never even heard of. Sports is one of those last things that everyone is still kind of following in the same way. And because of the way that the leagues are trying to maximize the amount of money they're making from sports fans through these subscription services, it's also just cracking the community that we see around these teams. I've had multiple friends come up to me about how they want to go to a sports bar and they've actually had to log in to their own YouTube TV account or some streaming service because the bar isn't able to actually stream those games. And when people can't take those moments for granted that you can just go to a sports bar and watch whatever big game might be on TV, those habits, those small habits start to fade over time. And as a result, it's hurting sports bars across the country.
I so applaud you for making that point. Just a quick final thought from me. I can't find stuff when I want to watch something. You know, gone are the, now I'm going to sound like the elder cocker here, but gone are the days when you knew on what channel you'd find the hockey game, the baseball game, the basketball game, or the football game. It's not only do we not watch the same shows, but we can't keep up with all the changes in terms of where we can go to watch more. Thank you. The piece was great. I hope people will Google it and read it, and appreciate you being here.
So, you know, you obviously talk sports. You also, you know, kind of watch entertainment TV shows on streaming platforms, et cetera, et cetera. It seems like my conversations with Ken Fang last night was kind of related to, you know, greed in sports, you know, the media, as well as the you know, the sports governing bodies, you know, not caring about, you know, pricing out the consumers. You know, obviously I was talking a lot about, you know, with him about the, you know, the U.S. Soccer Gold Cup and Club World Cup being held simultaneously, where tickets were like $200-300, but then a few days later, when the game gets closer, it's only by less than, you know, $20-30, or even much less than that for some, you know, matches that nobody even, you know, cares about in a stadium that's 60-70,000 like NFL stadiums, where you can only fill about 20-25% of it. And then to watch it, now the Zone, of course, was broadcasting these games for free, but in some cases, you know, NBA, NFL, MLB, and then the NHL, they have their own, you know, separate contracts. Like, for example, with the NFL, you have Netflix doing Black Friday games, and then on Christmas games, of course, and then you have to just sign up for that, you know, to watch, especially if your team is playing, et cetera, et cetera. Do you kind of sympathize with the current state of, you know, the sports media, as well as the people behind it, who are just kind of like running amok with, you know, multiple platforms just to, you know, make a quick buck, and then how hard it is to be a sports fan nowadays?
I think this goes back to a part of this is COVID, right? A part of this is when fans stopped being allowed to go to games, you saw these teams lose a bunch of money, and they're hemorrhaging money, and they're like, how fast can we make it up ASAP? The other thing I would say, like in that clip, that is a guy working in TV telling you that he doesn't know where to find stuff on TV. I think the cord cutting thing is now here, and this is life, in the streaming world. It's all going to be scattered, and if you're not used to having all that organized in your head, you have to find something else, some other way to organize all these things. But sports is the last bastion of communal hanging out, other than maybe going to a concert, and that's just in the moment with those people. Whereas in sports, it's across the nation. We're all doing this together. Like Netflix has tried to do the live streaming event here and there, and I think that still works. I do think that it can't suck like Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul, but the idea of a live streaming event, Chris Rock's first stand-up after the Will Smith thing happened, well, a Netflix live streaming event. I do believe in that. I think that's a good way to do things. I do miss the world where where we can go talk about, okay, Breaking Bad happened, and we watched it on Sunday night, and we can talk about it this week. What's going to happen next Sunday? When shows started, there's too much content, or too much, not too much content, too much elite, not enough elite level content, just too much mid content. I've called this right now, it's the golden age of mid TV. Like, we're not in that world, but a lot of that is, here's a show, and here it is at once. I think one of the best shows going right now is The Bear, based in, Chicago. I love it. But we've just, discussed this on the show. Well, they dropped all 8 episodes all at once. And I'm like, okay, so how are we all supposed to talk about this as a community when 30% of the people have seen it all, and 20% of the people haven't seen any of it, and 30% of the people, like, we're just so fragmented, and we don't need any more division. Like, we need to be like in line, and things like that. Like, that's where I kind of, I do worry about the sports thing. One of the great things about Mark Cuban, and you trust me, I have my issues with Mark Cuban as well, and the way he ran the Mavs, but he made it affordable to go to Mavs games. And that was one of his things is, I'm just a guy, and if you wanted to take your family and go sit in the 300s at a Mavs game, it wasn't going to cost you that much. And obviously inflation and all these things change over time, but seeing how the music industry is dealing with this as well, like the music industry is broken, and what broke them was I would say their COVID or their 9/11 moment was music downloading and Napster and LimeWire and Kazaa and Morpheus and all those, because I can just go download this and not pay. And it broke the music industry forever. But that's a never-ending game right here. We've seen Taylor Swift break it to where her demand was way more than the supply they had. And you don't see that very often in music. Right now, if you want to go to a show of one of your favorite bands, you're going to look at the resale market on one of these apps, these ticket apps, and you're going to be blown away. And you're going to say, I'm not paying that. And you go to these shows and they're never sold out unless it's Taylor Swift. These shows are rarely all full, these arena shows. So it's like, it's a lot of pricing people out. And I think you get a good portion of the nation to say, look, I got to cut back on something.
Exactly.
And
it usually is either cable or streaming services. People historically have kind of cut back on those luxuries,
Yeah. And that ends up being a problem for, and trust me, I don't think I'm sitting here championing cable, but like, that doesn't help the Bear when this portion of people said, I'm not getting Hulu. And it doesn't help current show on Netflix if people say, well, I'm a Hulu guy, or I got Paramount, or I got Disney, or whatever.
Right.
We could see a world with everything bundles back together, and I think that's happening. But I'm just like living this in radio too. Like, there's just like, they're trying to save money. Everyone's trying to save money. TV stations are trying to save money. Our local teams here in DFW, the Rangers are on the Ranger Sports Network and Victory Plus, which the Stars are on. Now the Rangers charge you $100 to watch them this year on Victory Plus. The Stars didn't charge, but they're going to next year.
And it will go, and the price will go up moving forward too.
And the price will probably move up going forward. Now, for me, $100 to watch 162 Ranger games, no brainer. I'll do it. Mavs TV. For me, I didn't get Mavs TV. I went and got an antenna, like $15, plugged it in, and I could watch the Mavs games. But our local sports teams are just trying to figure out how to get through this. So I wish I had more answers. His article, I did read that the other day. His article is interesting and
Yes,
terrifying,
it
and
is.
it should be more affordable, but there's a lot of options too. And I think we're finding that, do 15-year-olds love football, basketball, hockey, baseball the way we did? No. And that's another thing that you always have to come to grips with about getting older too, is like, it ain't like it used to be, man.
True, true. And it's one thing watching is becoming more and more expensive. Playing sports, in participation itself is also becoming a little more, of course, expensive as well. Pay to play, stuff like that in soccer.
Yeah.
When you have the travel teams on the weekends, I know Ben has talked about taking his son on a early morning baseball, games, two games in one day, and that kind of stuff before his son ultimately decided to not play because he no longer has the interest. Perhaps maybe he was burnt out as well, trying to I don't know, appease to Ben, as well as trying to find what really suited him, of course. But it feels like the sport itself is becoming, expensive, both watching and participating. And it just feels as though only those who have the money and the means to it are only able to participate, which obviously sends a really a terrible, terrible message to everybody. And I know, and it's unfortunate that we don't have a real answer to it. And again, the as I said earlier, people who will govern the the sports organizations, whether you want to call them commissioner, chairman, president, or whatever, they just don't seem to have have a slightest of ideas, or they're just also in it for the quick money, and then they don't have the the long-term solutions. They're just chasing the money short term, and then really breaking down the system, with no serious answers to it, unfortunately. But KT, I really appreciate you hanging out with me tonight, and I want to thank my good friend Jeff Skinwade, your co-host on Ben and Skin Show, on the show that you do, 97.1 the Ticket, 97.1 the Eagle, a rock station and an iHeart radio station as well. I've been obviously posting your, X tonight. For those who are watching us tonight, thank you very much. And, if you want to follow Kevin Turner for obviously Cowboys and other topics, do follow him, and also listen to his station. He does the Ben and Skin Show with Ben Rogers and Jeff Skinwade from 3 to 6. Central Time, and I forgot to mention, of course, your other co-host, Christina Ray there. So all four of you do the show. Great chemistry, 3 to 6. If you need a good laugh, or if you need something to obviously kill your boredom at school or work and whatnot, I listen to your show every day, even with the time differences and everything. So I really appreciate you doing this, and I want to wish you continued success, and I look forward to having you on again down the road when, maybe when we get into the football season, both, NFL and college and whatnot. So thanks for your time. Have a wonderful evening, and wishing you continued success, and hope to see you again on our show down the line.
Dude, thank you so much for having me. Very good to finally meet you in person, even though I've known you for years on Twitter.
Yes.
And maybe we'll get together for a Packers Bears week or something.
Absolutely. And, I've been wanting to get back to Dallas, DFW. I used to live in Frisco, Plano, north of Dallas, and I still have friends there. And hopefully one day I will visit you guys, or maybe, move there once again for a job and whatnot. But, I look forward to seeing you hopefully in person next time. Sooner rather than later. So thanks for your time, and say hello to everybody at the station, and hope to see you again. Have a great night. Thank you so much.
Rock on, man.
Rock on. Thank you so much. And thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us tonight, everybody, and have a wonderful evening. And we look forward to seeing you again next time on the Double A Team podcast. Take care, everybody.